Hey, and welcome to our first ever Powwow Entertainment Q&A. Today, I've got Max, our VFX artist, with me. I'm going to be pestering him with all sorts of questions so we can get as much info about the development of Stuntfest and the inner workings of Powwow as we can to show you what's going on behind the scenes. Max, hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. How you doing? You good?
Yeah, really good. It's getting really busy right now with our game, but it's really good.
Good busy, yeah?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
Good, good. So I've got already a bunch of questions, but first off, I want to just kind of know if you would like to explain for those who may be a little bit uneducated when it comes to game dev, what is it you actually do for Stuntfest and in Powwow?
Yeah, so I'm a real-time VFX artist, and for powwow specifically, I'm a technical VFX artist. So I'm a bit more in the nooks and crannies of the game structure. So in general, as a real-time VFX artist, I'm responsible for particle effects. Might it be like an explosion or a laser dust or whatever you
Mhm.
see that is a cool thing that happens. This also applies to cool surfaces that like a material an object might have, like of a cool rippling surface, color is changing, like all kinds of things. And that's also why I'm a technical person in that sense, because I'm more down in the widths of like specific shader stuff that are more in depth, and also looking at performance so that the behind the scenes of effects is more optimized and everything is named correctly in the correct structure. And that's what I really like to dive into, is like how things work and what I
Yeah.
can do to make them better and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I mean, I've experienced some of your work firsthand from playing the game with like the big smoke trails and stuff. I know it's been quite a point of contention for you the past couple of weeks, but I saw them
I
the other
I
day
actually
and I
didn't make
love
them,
them.
but I optimized them.
Oh, you optimized them. Ah, okay,
Yes.
okay. Who was it who made them?
I don't made them, yeah.
Ah, okay, cool. Because they look great, and
Mhm.
I know they've gone through a couple of different iterations, and right now they
Yeah,
are spot on.
it's super tricky because of multiplayer stuff. Everything
Mm,
just gets way more complicated, and yeah, we are now pushing at the moment to optimize a lot more. And I am now have the time to look at other people's work as well, so
yep.
I can crack down on stuff that may help us in the long run.
So, do you find yourself working more with other people's work, or do you find working more
No,
with your own work?
yeah, I mean, most of the time it's definitely my own, but right now, because of the position we are in with the summer of stunts coming up and stuff like that, and because I joined like really late into the project
Mhm.
in the compared to the overall scope, uh, I am there to also clean up stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I'm not, and most of the time I was producing stuff, but now I am specifically looking at optimizing things and cleaning things up.
Okay, that's
So I
cool.
guess overall it's still more producing my own.
Yeah. So you say that you're quite new to the company. If correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you've been with Powwow about 5 months or so.
Yeah, 4 to
Uh,
5.
so
I
how long
started
have
in March, so
in
yeah,
March? Okay, cool.
it's this is the
So
5th month now.
how long, and just for prosperity's sake, we're currently in August in 2022. So, and how long have you been in the industry then?
I started studying game stuff in 2015, and I got my first job in November 2018. So it's coming up on 4 years at this point. Yeah,
Okay, that's cool.
pretty
And
soon.
so, have you always been in the games industry then, or did you start elsewhere?
Yeah, like the previous job was my first like full-time job, and it was also a game company. Yeah.
Okay, that's sick. So literally, your first full time
Yeah.
job was straight
Yeah.
off games industry stuff. That's
Yes.
pretty dope.
I was
So,
really lucky, but it took like half a year or longer to find anything. But
mhm,
then that was the road in.
that's cool. Did you? So, what is it you studied?
Yeah, I studied game art and 3D animation
Hmm.
in Munich, where I originally come from. That was like just learning the basics of like before I got there, I didn't know anything about 3D modeling or stuff like that, and I wanted to do more like concept stuff because I'm on my own time. I'm doing illustration a little bit and stuff like that, and I like art in general in all kinds of disciplines. But then I realized that I'm not really an idea kind of guy, and when after learning 3D modeling, I it really
Yeah.
jumped to a new degree, and by the time I finished that school, it's not really a school, like an institute. I was in a decent point, and I did more stuff on my own as well, and got to know a lot of people. That's also good why being in a uni, not doing it online, is that you get connections to other
Yeah.
people, also making game projects in there with programmers and stuff like that. And then I was a supervisor there for like a year and
Mhm.
also teaching a couple of class like perspective drawing, but mostly helping other students there. And then yeah, through connections with my former colleagues there, I got into the company then, like after I had done my bachelor. Yeah.
That's cool. It's interesting what you say in terms of it's great getting those connections from like institutes of learning, because
Yeah.
I do think the old adage of it's not what you know but who you know can sometimes be quite true, that having those connections but also that experience of working within a team prior to working professionally within a
Mhm.
team can be a huge
It is,
benefit.
yeah, it's extremely important because soft skills of like how learning to navigate around people and communicating with people is extremely important. Like
Yeah.
if you're not as good, it's not that problematic because you can always learn more from other people. The most important thing is that you know how to talk to people and like be in a like with a group and stuff like that. That's
Yeah,
way more
agreed.
important.
Yeah, it's hugely important. So now that you're with powwow and everything like that, how are you finding working on Stuntfest? Is it as awesome as we like to make it appear to be?
It's definitely really good to work on a game that is in development for a longer time
Mhm.
because when I in the other company I we were working on smaller VR games that have been in development for 5 to 6 months. So it was a way different progress to pretty much everything else
Yeah,
that is out there. So it's really good working at something that can develop a lot more. And it's also kind of slowly creeping in the realization that people will play the stuff now that I make.
yeah,
And I don't know the reactions to it. It's also like, okay, maybe some will never notice the little things that we put in, but it's definitely very rewarding so far.
yeah. So far, I mean, this is my first professional game project myself, and we had a community play test yesterday, and I can assure you, so far, the feedback just from the few people we've said or allowed it to have their hands on time has been phenomenal. I've like the laughter and all the gauntlets
Mm,
being thrown down already is crazy, and
yeah.
it's definitely hitting the right notes that we're hoping to. So, with your time with Power, I imagine that you've run into quite a few challenges. Is there one like specific challenge that you've ran into within your role here that you've can recall pretty quickly?
I mean, there's stuff right now, today actually, where it is just that like we have a lot of complicated stuff going on
Mm,
with the whole vehicles and how it works with multiplayer and being really optimized and as low profile as possible. So I'm now working with the work of another person, trying to crunch it down
yeah,
and rearranging everything, and it's just so complicated because there's so much going on that I have to reconfigure. It's just it takes forever. It's more of a tedious work right now, but there's always I because of the work that I do and I like to do, I like to put a little bit more into the certain effects that are like they read certain like physics stuff that I
mhm,
can use for interactions. It was lot more specific when we did VR because then you have like player position and hands and all kinds of stuff that you have to read and because of the way I like to make those things, it's also way more complicated to achieve it.
yeah.
And I always run into such obscure problems that even the internet can't help me. Then I have to bang my head against the keyboard per se for like a couple of days and ask programmers and a lot of times I can get it done, but there are always some occasions where even Unreal development forums say like, "Yeah, this doesn't work yet," and then I have to abandon the idea. It's
There's
really
no
frustrating.
worse feeling than
Mhm.
googling something and getting no
Yeah.
answers, and you're just like, ah, no,
Yeah, but
that
it's
is
even
the
more
worst.
frustrating when the answer is it doesn't work that way, or you
Yeah,
can't we can't use it that way. That's like, okay, I guess I'll abandon it. Yeah,
yeah.
but
It's
it's
always heartbreaking.
yeah, that's my work life basically. It's always obscure problems, but I also like problem solving. Like the whole job is problem solving. I really like that aspect. Like
Yeah,
the more technical you get, the more it is problem solving. Because like I've been migrating slowly into more technical over the last 2.5 years,
mhm.
and I really enjoy doing that. But it's sometimes extremely frustrating because nobody is there to help you.
But then you start being a pioneer, and then you have to write the
Yeah,
guides
yeah.
instead.
Yeah, like, especially at this company as well, because at the moment, there's no one higher up for me in my
Mhm.
position, so I'm the one that has to decide stuff or, like, figure things out and document them for the future.
Yeah.
But it's also cool to do, but I wish that I had somebody to learn from, like, more quickly, because I'm definitely somebody who can learn better if I have another person to rely on directly.
Yeah, I can imagine that definitely helps. So, I mean, going forward with the things that you're currently working on, do you find that because mentioned that you work on VR games previously, and now you're working on a pretty large scale multiplayer game, do you find that complicates things even further?
It is kind of a trade-off, because we also did multiplayer back then,
Okay.
but it was always more of a local server four
Hmm.
player, compared to now 18 player completely online, and also vehicles with crazy physics stuff. And it on that front, it is extremely complicated and way more difficult to manage. But on the other hand, it's really good for me because it's not in VR and I can do other things that I couldn't do before.
Yeah.
Because specifically Epic and Unreal has certain things that they just don't like develop for VR because it's not worth it for them. But
Mhm.
with a normal game in that sense, the features are there and I can actually use them, which I've been wanting to use for a couple of years now. So
So
I would say it's generally more like better for me because I can do more stuff, which I
yeah.
want to try out. Yeah.
So did you work with Unreal on VR, or were you working with Unity on
Yeah,
VR?
I've been doing a little bit of Unity when I was in uni,
Mhm.
but I never felt comfortable with it. And as soon as we got to Unreal, I was all aboard, and I've been using it for like
I've
5 6 years
I
now.
think
Yeah,
I've been using Unreal for 3 or 4 years now, and I remember booting up Unity like once, getting about an hour in, and being like, "Nah, nah,
it's just a
I'll come back
completely
later."
different way of working, especially if you're just an artist. Because like my final diploma project was, it was solo because nobody wanted to do a sci-fi space station at the time, so I was just on my own, and I couldn't have done it in Unity because I don't know anything about programming,
Mhm.
like actual coding, and I couldn't have done anything because like the artist tools are so limited in the base Unity, at
Yeah,
least like 5 years ago. And the render pipeline was also pretty old at that point, and it wouldn't have looked like half as good,
no.
and not in the time frame of like four
But
months. So
that being said, like Unity now seems like a really solid engine. The amount of games I see popping up on Steam, etc.,
Mhm.
from Unity, it seems like
It
it's come
is,
a hell of a long
yeah.
way.
It is definitely for different kinds of games. Like
Mhm.
there, the it's you can tell when a game is more suitable for is Unity or Unreal,
Yeah,
especially like open world stuff, because Unity's tools for open like terrain and open worlds uh, mechanics and also creation aren't really that developed. Like Chris Radsby, our lead environment artist and also technical director nowadays, I think.
yeah,
I'm not sure actually. He's done like a big old dive into Unity comparing to Unreal on his
Mhm.
ArtStation blog, which is really interesting. And he's been working in both engines for a long time, like discovering what we can do. And I've never had the interest because it's just for me not worth it at all. But it's definitely really powerful. Like
yeah.
both of the engines. There's so many incredible games on Unity that I stuff like Tarkov, for example, I would have never guessed that it was made in Unity.
When
But that
somebody
is
told me
also,
that, I was
yeah,
just
that
like,
is also
"What?"
because the programmers made it look so good,
Yeah,
because it would have never looked that good out of the box. But you have to have the ability to put more into it to get the look out of it.
yeah. I
Yeah.
do. I do find nowadays, because I've played that many games, I'll boot up a game, or be able to see footage of a game and be able to just instantly tell that's Unity, that's
Mhm.
Unreal, or that's a first proprietary one. Especially with Unreal, there's something about the shaders in Unreal where
Yes,
you see it
yes.
for literally 5 seconds, and you're like, that's an Unreal game,
Yeah, and
like
then you have
straight
also
away.
like certain things, like some indie game, like some really small games have certain sounds that are made from the presets are like included, and there's always little things where you can tell, ah, okay, I remember that part. Especially if you worked on it with the engine for so long, you'll
Yeah.
notice that stuff.
Thankfully, since becoming a community manager, I haven't had to open Unreal Engine for a while. but I would like to delve back in. I've all my Unreal has been replaced with After Effects and Photoshop these days, but it is what it
Yeah,
is
it's a
as the job
different workflow.
evolves. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, is there one thing in Stuntfest right now that you look at of your work and you're just like, damn, I am so proud of that? Is there like one specific thing or just
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, I mean, this thing is like because the game is more realistic and I've
Mhm.
been pretty late into the project, like a lot of the cool stuff has already been in there. So my work has been more like a little bit more ambient stuff
Yeah,
and behind the scenes. So I guess it's just the overall thing now, but
that's cool.
I liked all the little things I put together so far.
So if people boot up the game as when they can and they're looking for stuff that you've done, is there anything that comes to mind that you've specifically worked on?
I mean, I like my power up drone,
Yeah, the power up
the
drone's
orange
cool.
guy with the
Yeah.
with all of the lightning stuff that I figured out how to get that running because that was a bit of a mess how this came together, like
Mhm.
figuring out how to do the lightning stuff with the bubble that I imagined and how this interacts. This is all like again figuring out and how to solve problems. But in the end, like I really like the look at this point and
Yeah.
also how I got this the object moving without actually with no animation stuff like that. This is all done in shader again.
Yeah.
Like this is the stuff that I like to do that I really like to dive in, like how to make funky things that we can implement and also maybe get into gameplay functionality and stuff like that.
I think the drone is a great example because it's a small pickup with like a glowing aura around it, and it's so easily recognizable straight off the bat that you
Hmm.
don't have to be searching for it while also playing. You can just
Hmm.
while you're playing, it's just in your your field of view, and you just instantly are able to recognize what it is and aim for it if you need to. And I think that works
Yeah,
just hugely well, like so easily. Um, I think it definitely having stuff like that in games where it's really easy to recognize stuff without having to focus makes life so much easier, so much easier.
yeah. And there's
Uh,
also like small ambient stuff that I made some ambient birds, just some super basic models that are like flapping, but if you look at it close, it's just basically like a shadow, but the shadow is moving around and flying in the air. And it's also just a little bit of code, like a bit of math that makes the wings flap and
yeah,
another bit that makes them float around in a circle. And it's just so fun to do those little things that I can make with a bit of math in the basically in the material itself. It's so funky to me, and that's the thing that I like about like doing small things or like just doing weird things with a shader.
yeah. But do
Yeah.
you find yourself maybe you'll start doing one thing, you'll be like, oh, but what maybe if I just did this, or maybe if I just did that, and then you end up going off in like a bit of a tangent every now and again, trying to figure out
Yeah,
other
I
things you could do.
what I have is because if you when you're doing shader stuff, it is all in nodes. Like you have all kinds of little boxes that are connected with cables in
Yeah,
your specific editor, and you're just trying around. Like my job is just trying out different values and different boxes that I can add into my system to do new things, do a bit of a different math. Like, why don't I multiply it instead of adding it or whatever? And you just have to maybe change the boxes around so this operation goes first and then the other, and then you have some weird happy accidents, and then I make a GIF and save it. So okay, this looks cool. Maybe I can use it for something later, and then I get the inspiration to do something for my own personal stuff that I just want to create and stuff like that. So
yeah.
it definitely comes up.
Do you find you take your work home with you quite a lot?
I mean, it's just that more that at the moment I want to broaden my horizon for the
Mhm.
skills that I have. That I like to do specific things, like to create some things on my own, but they aren't really in tandem to the work that I
Yeah.
do, like on my day job. Yeah.
But it would be like, referencing maybe a design document or something for something else to get ideas to then take to work the next day and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Sure.
the reverse of how it was with myself, where I started off as a hobbyist and then transitioned to the games industry. Whereas for yourself, it's like you educated and got into the games industry, and now every now and then you find yourself at home trying to expand your skill set.
Yeah, I
It's
mean that's also how I got hired, I guess, to like for Power because I was doing personal stuff
Mhm.
on the side when I was still at the old company because at that point the last year or so wasn't even published of the work because I was just busy all the time and getting all of my stuff on ArtStation also takes a long time to make the gifs and put them together and write stuff up, and I always put that off. So I just posted my own little things that I made on Twitter and other
Yeah.
platforms, and I guess I got picked up that way because I did actually apply. I got contacted, so this is always something that helps.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I don't want to get hired again, but I just want to make stuff for my own because I want to broaden my abilities, especially now that I'm a technical person. I am doing some blueprint stuff, like some scripting things, and also basic animation, getting that done to be more involved in every discipline, and
That's
so I
cool.
can help people more directly. Yeah.
It's always cool to meet somebody who has like the drive to keep building on the tools they already have of their own
Hmm.
volition. I've met people who have done like absolutely immaculate things because they were happy with what they were doing at work, and they were like, but what if I did this, did that, and the other? And they spent like a couple of days a week or something like that, a couple of evenings a week
Mm.
expanding their tool set, and now they can do even more stuff that they're able to then take to work, and it
Yeah.
reinforces their skill set at work, which is
Yeah.
great to see. When it comes to say somebody who wants to get into VFX or anything like that, do you recommend taking the time to build up portfolios and stuff outside of work?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, it's also VFX artists are like really desired or like really looked after because there's not many people out there who
mhm,
can do the job because like I guess that until like 2 years ago or something there wasn't even like any schools that would teach it,
yeah,
and almost everybody who is in this discipline came from a different point to VFX. Like of course most are artists, a lot of them are also programmers from the technical side, and
mm,
some are also from the movie industry, and it's called the same, but it's really like a totally different approach for the most part.
yeah,
But it's still you can get a lot of things from there. Like some programs like Houdini are extremely good if you already use them for movie stuff, like for cinema. Then applying them to games makes you extremely powerful. So there's definitely people coming in from all kinds of other yeah origins. But
yeah. I was
for like
sorry, go on.
I would say like for learning stuff and to make your own thing is definitely the right place to go
Yeah,
because from the VFX front, I also learned everything on my own. There was nobody there besides like some colleagues teaching me some basic shader stuff in Unreal to get going. That's how I developed my interest for the whole thing.
mhm.
But in general, you have to like it's probably the easiest and the most efficient progress if you do stuff on your own. But also, what is really good is contact other people. I think like almost everybody that I know of that is in like in this bubble, especially on Twitter, is happy to answer questions
Twitter is
and do
great.
stuff like that. Yeah, like
Yeah,
especially for VFX, I that's how I made so many contacts already because everybody's on there and sharing little bits of information and like, oh, I made this specific thing in the shader today, and here's the graph, and it's just awesome. That's definitely like contact people and stuff like that. That's how you get going.
I bet it must be quite tough sometimes if you've got a problem to do with say Stuntfest for or a project that you're working on, which
Yeah,
is under NDA, and you want to ask somebody for help, but you can't show them the
yeah.
project, so you have to kind of try and describe it.
Yeah, that's I mean, I haven't really asked people about indus like problems from my work,
Mhm.
like from my professional work, because I don't really know how to tackle that specific topic. But I mean, I've asked Chris for some specific cases because he still has a lot of technical knowledge. But for the most part, I'm more on my own here, so it's always more of a Google thing. But for
Yeah.
personal stuff, I've definitely asked people before. Yeah.
I will say that one thing. Obviously, powwow is my first experience when it comes to the games industry. But the way everybody seems so quick and happy to help each other out within powwow is something that I am absolutely amazed by. If you have the smallest problem and you just post on the Discord, I
Mhm.
mean, with the inside of an hour, someone will be like, "Hey, I can help with that," and then you get help pretty quickly. At least in my
Yeah.
experience, which has been
Yeah.
an absolute great welcome to the industry.
I mean, I'm also definitely somebody who's always down to help somebody with a question. I've offered it to many people. I mean, not a lot of people have actually come up on the offer, but it's always you
Oh
don't
yeah,
really know. Should I actually ask them now because it's their off time or whatever? But
Yeah.
I mean, I have some people like lead effects artists from Rare or whatever who told me on Twitter, hey, if you need anything, contact me. But I was like, is this problem good enough for them or important enough? Like, can I
It's
just figure it
crazy,
on
isn't
my
it?
own? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's always super tricky, but
It's
I totally get
it's
that.
been it's like even like outside of powwow as well, it's crazy how quick it seems the people within the games industry stick together and help each
Yeah,
other out, and
totally.
I love
Everybody's
it.
happy to help. Yeah.
Having come from
I
like
mean,
an
for the
IT
most part.
background. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, there's always outliers no matter what. But
Yeah.
coming from an IT background where it's fairly insular to the company that you're in, that's the first thing that I've noticed in the games industry is
Mhm.
it's everybody's trying to make sure that to make each other's life easier. Because not only
Yeah.
that, but like especially like I imagine from like a VFX perspective, people might throw out idea or questions that you might not know, and it's like, well, actually, I want to know the answer to that as well. So let's
Yeah,
see if we
totally.
can figure it
The
out.
because, like, so much stuff that we do is so obscure that probably nobody really has done in that way before, because it's not just, "Okay, I'm making character A,
Yeah.
like, I'm sculpting it, and I'm retopoing it, and then texturing it, and so on," but it's like, "Okay, I have to do lava coming out of a funnel now, and what is the lava? Is this a mesh? Is it a particle? How is this gonna look? Is it glowing with the light, or it's it's just so abstract that you have to, if it's not like more stylized stuff is more like different because it's more of just textures doing stuff.
Mm,
But if you have more realistic effects, you have to really do more abstract workflows to get stuff implemented, because you are way more limited, because like you have the real reference,
mm.
but you can't do anything that is even close to it in real time, because the performance is just not there to make it look good in the easiest way. So you have to really find some abstract thing to get you the result.
That's
So
cool.
it's yeah. Mhm.
Well, that's awesome. Is there any like when it comes to your work, is there any like specific games that you've ever looked at and being like as an influence into other areas of your work?
Oh, this is like a really tricky question now. But there's so many games where I love one specific thing. I think the biggest game, because I'm also playing it a lot, is
Mhm.
Destiny 2.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
you're a
also
huge Destiny
because
fan.
it has so many fantastical things going on. I've
Mhm.
actually done a couple of effect studies of Destiny specifically, like to learn what is behind that. I don't think I've published any, but like some shader stuff, some particle stuff from a weapon or something, because I really like how everything looks. Like aesthetically, the game is absolutely incredible,
Yeah.
and the effects as well. It's just such a good balance of like making something magical work with gameplay, but also work in the specific sci-fi
Yes.
universe. And it yeah, because I'm more a fan of, especially also for my own work, of more like gamey effects, not
Mhm.
this crazy explosion stuff, but more mechanical effects that work
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
as a sort of like you have a cool magic orb that is a checkpoint, or some sort of whatever thing that is a bit different than what you see from other effects artists, when their portfolio is more like you have this sword swing combo with an explosion in the
Mhm.
end, or like character skills that you would see like for League of Legends fan art or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's not really my thing. Like also for VFX, people have like preferences, and I would say like Destiny is my go-to
You're-
for the aesthetic of what I
That's
like. Yeah,
cool. And so do you
but
reckon you
there's
could so go
mhm.
on?
There's like all kinds of different games as well, like some stylized stuff. Like it's just like also really cool ideas from other games that are just blow my mind, and I want to see how it was done.
Yeah.
Control was also pretty incredible with all of the hiss
Adore that
and
game.
this refractive rainbow smoke
Yeah.
that is simulated on the screen in real time. It just blows my mind.
Do you find yourself going into like the file structure and stuff and see if you can pull things
No,
apart?
I don't know. I don't really touch like data mining stuff, but I
Yeah.
have the control art book here, and it actually has a VFX section. I was super
Oh, that's sick.
surprised. This is the first game art book that I own or like or read, so that
Mhm.
actually has a VFX section. And this like went into detail about simulation stages and how this his effect was made, and it made me happy.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's most of the art books that I have are just concept art, and then
yeah, it's
from
mostly
concept to realization,
yeah,
rather than
it's
anything more technical.
yeah, totally.
But I mean, they're great for like reference pieces, but sometimes it's like, yeah, but I want to know how you got from that to that,
Mhm.
so I can do it
Yeah.
kind of myself as well. But I can also understand why they like to keep things maybe a little bit more hidden.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, sometimes you have people that keep their secrets, but it's also a lot of times, especially like for games like Control, where they have their own proprietary engine,
Hmm.
and they have a whole team of people. Like the lead, I think, also it was a lead or some really high-ranking, extremely skilled guy that was in the movie VFX industry,
Yeah,
and all of them bring so much in there that like it's a team in that form is just unmatched
that's
of
fair.
what they do for this specific thing. And now it's just not fair because at this company we have two VFX artists who've been like combined in the industry for like 5 6 years in the
Mm.
VFX sense. And yeah, if you have a big company with 30 people and if technical whatever uh, prowess, it's just insane. And but I want to get there. I want to learn more and more as much as I can. That's also why I want to like have more people on hand that I can suck the information out of, because over the internet with tutorials is just not the same, and
Yeah.
I work way slower in that way.
So do you find Stuntfest is pushing you to like use all the knowledge you've got and having to go further?
um I think it will in the future, but
Hmm.
it's just that for now there isn't really that much that requires me to go beyond, like
Yeah,
more beyond. But I'm still always trying to do new stuff, so I can inch a little bit up every time. But I would think that it's definitely a more steady climb right now.
that's
Yeah.
cool. But I mean, in terms of the entire process of making a racing game, are you finding that there's any sort of specific, I guess, things you're coming up with? Because when you say VR games that you've made in the past, I'm assuming none of them are sort of wreckage based racing games,
Yeah.
etc. So I imagine it's coming up with its unique set of challenges as you go.
Yeah, but it's also because it's so realistic in the style,
Yeah.
and everything, that there isn't really much room to explore and go crazy,
Mhm.
because there's no magic, no supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
Like for Control, like this whole thing is supernatural, even
Yep.
though everything
Yep.
else is more realistic. Like you have a realistic brutalist concrete office and
Yep.
normal people in uniforms, but then you have weird zombies floating around with a rainbow smoke. So
Yeah. No, it's true.
and a floating like alien gun. So but like for our game, this is way more grounded, and
Yeah.
there's also just not enough room to explore and go crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's it's just the way it is. Yeah.
Stuntfest is definitely not something that I would call realistic, but it's definitely, I would say, in comparison to Control,
Yeah.
way more grounded. Yes,
Yeah, like
agreed, agreed.
everything going on the effects, it's more like, okay, we have smoke for the tires, we have a flame for when the engine is on fire,
Mhm.
and a jet exhaust, and some stuff. Like the only abstract elements are the gameplay things that I
Yeah.
made, like a
So I mean, like,
checkpoint and a power up, and
if you
yeah.
could add anything you wanted to, what would you add?
Um,
Could be like a special particle of skin or something like that.
I would like a really crazy hover vehicle
Okay.
with some really wobbly magic stuff that is like propulsing it and stuff like
So we're
that.
talking
That would
like
be cool.
Back to the Future DeLorean with the tires sideways,
Yeah,
like hover
but
along.
also more of like a weird hovercraft that is just
Okay.
only like pushed by some weird smoky purple cloud, some really funky stuff that
So you
is
just push it as far as you
distorting.
could.
Yeah, like distorting it and stuff like that, like distorting the view around you and whatever.
We'll
Yeah.
have to ask the team if we can
Maybe
maybe
we can make a
slide it in.
vehicle skin.
Maybe we can. So last question for this chat, I wanted to ask if you were to recommend to people who wanted to get into the VFX industry and stuff like that, is there anywhere that you'd recommend them starting, or is there any suggestions you'd give to get
Um
them the momentum to get into the industry?
I mean, it depends on how far you've already gone, but
Hmm.
like definitely getting the basics done of the engine is really important. That you know your way around everything.
Yep.
Also, being like versed with how to set things up and also naming them, because like naming is extremely important when you're sending parameters to other systems and
Yep.
everything around. Like being really good with naming and stuff like that is really good. But in general, like for tutorials, there's a lot of people out there who are willing and really open to teach people stuff on YouTube. There's a ton of different like playlist series that are go into way detail. Yeah, so that's definitely, I think, like YouTube is always a good place to
Yeah,
start.
I love
But
YouTube
there's
just for that.
also a forum called Real Time VFX.
Hmm.
That's where a lot of people go on to do stuff. You can ask people on ArtStation. Twitter
Yep.
is always good, and there's also all kinds of Discords servers. I'm not really that into using game dev Discords,
Yep.
at least for now, until now, because I wasn't really aware that it's something that people do a lot. But I've just joined some Discord from a dev that I'm following, and in there, even they make their point to help you. And there's a channel to get help. Or I asked a question, but I didn't get an answer because it was some obscure thing again. But then I ended up helping other people with some small stuff that I knew around and stuff like that. So
That's
Discord
cool.
is also definitely really good for that.
Awesome. So for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, we will be adding the links down below. So make sure you go check it out if you want to check out any of the stuff that has been mentioned in the chat today. Max, thank you very much for joining me and letting me pick your brains about all things Stuntfest and VFX related. I really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, I really
And
appreciate it too.
no worries. Hopefully we can grab you again at some point and we'll pick your brains even further once people have had their chance to get their hands on. Because I imagine we might have a number of community questions we can throw at you. But beyond that, again, thank you very much for being here, and we'll speak again next time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.